Hey guys, so I just wanted to go over how to solve cosine squared x plus cosine x equals 0. Some people might just go straight to it and say, okay, well, cosine squared x plus cosine x equals 0. Add these two together, it's cosine cubed x equals 0, but that's not quite how you do it. You need to treat it more of like an algebra problem and basically factor out a cosine. So how it's going to actually play out is cosine um, x. And then in parentheses, you're just going to have a cosine here. And what a lot of people forget to do is to put this 1 here. And when you think about it, try to factor this back in if you don't have the 1. This is just going to give you cosine squared x. Oops, I'm sorry. Cosine squared x. So you really need to remember that there's a 1 here in front. There's like a imaginary 1 here, right? In front of this cosine. And so you really need to make sure that you don't forget this 1. All right, so now it's just simple algebra for the most part. You just do, now that we have this things equal to 0, the whole equation equal to 0, you just got to find cosine of, let me rewrite that. We have cosine of x equals 0, and we have cosine um, x plus, or I guess plus 1 equals 0, and we're going to make that negative 1, so we're going to minus 1 from each side. Cosine x equals negative 1. And then all you need to do is, if you can just remember the cosine graph, right? A cosine graph looks like this. It's between 1 and negative 1, and it starts at 1 and does something like that, right? Let's make this line a little bit longer here, right? And that's your simple cosine graph. You know, at 0, it starts at 1, and it'll keep going, boom, 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 boom. Okay, so does this make sense, right? Well, let's think about this. We have to find where it equals 0 and where it equals 1. So when does this equal 0? Well, if you remember this graph here, this line is pi over 2. This line is pi. This line is 3 pi over 4, or over 2, excuse me. And this is 2 pi right here. So if you don't know what I'm talking about here, just remember that cosine and sine both live between 0 and 2 pi. And that's pretty much pretty standard in trigonometry, is cosine and sine both live between 0 and 2 pi. So this is what your graph really looks like here. You start at 0, right? So let's find out where it equals 0. So cosine x equals 0. Well, it equals 0 here, right? Because the x-axis, this is 0 on the y-axis, so the x-axis would be 0. So it equals 0 at pi over 2, and it also equals 0 at 3 pi over 2. And so now we have to find, now that this one's done, we found where cosine equals 0. Now we have to find where cosine equals negative 1. Well, that's easy if we look at our graph here. Cosine equals negative 1 at pi. So that'll be your answer for that equation, and that is your solution set. And just like that, you are done.